right, everyone. Well, thank you again for being with us. It is a beautiful day here in South Carolina as well. I don't think there's a cloud in the sky, and the sun is shining brightly, and the trees are showing their colors, and it's just absolutely gorgeous. It's certainly a good day to be alive, to be part of this beautiful, beautiful experience. And this morning what we'd like to share some ideas. I was reading a text on Buddhism last night. I love to read all different teachings and all different philosophies. And as Dr. Holmes said, we take the good where we find it. We leave the rest behind. And I take what I can. I take what I can get my little mind around. And I leave the rest behind. Some of it is simply because I don't understand it yet. But what I came across was something so delightful that I felt that we wanted to share it today and talk about it, because Dr. Holmes says very much the same thing, and it is this idea of unlimited friendliness. And they have a little picture in this book that I'm reading, a little picture of the different authors who write the articles, and here's this little smiling man, just has this big beaming smile on his face next to this banner, the title of the chapter, Unlimited Friendliness. Unlimited Friendliness. And I said, wow, what is that all about? So I had to jump in and read it. And in a certain Buddhist tradition, there's different teaching schools, different teachers in different schools, and the idea is that people are attracted to the school, which is right for their growth at that time. But there's one school that teaches unlimited friendliness as a spiritual practice. Loving kindness, seeing the good in everyone, and being open to be a friend in everyone. And by doing that, by deliberately doing that, by trying to find the good, by trying to be a friend to everyone, it tears down the barriers that separate. It tears down the barriers that divide. It allows the adherents to experience to a greater degree the unity of life, the oneness of life. And how wonderful is that, to experience the oneness of life, to experience the goodness wherever we go. And I wanted to talk about that just a little bit today, because it's a very simple thing. It's something that we can do everywhere we go. We can do it 24 hours a day. You can even, in your dreams, you can even practice your loving kindness. You can practice your unlimited friendliness. You can do your spiritual practice even while you're asleep. But this one is just so simple, or it seems. The idea is so simple. The practice may not be so simple. But it will show us exactly where we want to grow, where we want to let go of ideas that separate us. So let's get in our head the image of little children, preschoolers, for example, or kindergarten children. And we've all seen them. We've all experienced little kids when they are first coming into this idea of friendship. And they have their buddies, they have their friends who are just their absolute best friends forever, And they don't care what the race is, they don't care what the sex is, they don't care tall or short or how much they weigh or anything. If they are buddies, by God, they are buddies. You know what I'm talking about? The picture two little ones sitting on a park bench side by side with their hands over each other's shoulder, and they're sharing something. They're always seem to be trying to share something, a little book or a piece of candy or a toy or something, But it's hard to tell where one ends and the other begins, because they're friends, and they're always thinking of their friends. And if you give them something, they want to run and tell their friend all about it, and come Christmas time or birthday times or times when presents are given, they want their friends to get really good things. They're happy for their friends, and they want to get really good things so they can go and share them with their friends. And they're just so excited for each other. They're just so excited for the welfare of each other, for the well-being, for the happiness. They're just really just caught up in this idea that there's something special about friends. And that's the idea of friendship that I got when I saw this unlimited friendliness. Can you imagine what it would be like if the world were like that, if we could live in a world like that? where even as adults, where we could just be that excited for one another, just excited to be with one another, to be happy, to expect the best for each other, to want the best, even if it's 10 times better than what I have. I still want you to have the best, and the best of whatever I have, I'm more than willing to share with you. What a wonderful world it would be. So let's talk a little bit about this idea and how we start in this world, and then how we get to the point where that magic kind of gets lost, because it's not too many years after that the little ones go off into other grades and higher grades, and then things start to change. Things start to get a little bit more serious, if you will, perhaps a little meaner. Bullying starts to take over. So if a child is different than the rest of the children, instead of the children just accepting that one the way they are, they want to pick on him or her and bully them. And you're too tall, or you're too short, or you're too heavy, you're too skinny, you're too this, you're too that. So we need to understand a little bit how our human psyche evolves, and when it comes time for us to go back to go back and ask ourselves, do we have ideas that are separating us from each other? Do we have ideas that other people and other nations, and other political parties, other theologies and ideologies, that they need to be picked on, that we need to avoid them, we need to ostracize them because they're not like us? And how can we get past that if that's where we are? It certainly seems that that's where the human race is right now. Osho tells us that all the problems that we have in the world are problems that stem from separation. We think we're all so much different when we're in fact so much alike. Dr. Holmes takes it a level deeper, and he says all of our problems in the world come from an idea of separation from God. But suppose we could all be friends. Suppose we could be friends with ourselves. Suppose we could be friends with God. Suppose we could be friends with each other. And that requires spiritual growth. That's why unlimited friendliness can be a spiritual practice. So if we look at little children when they come into the world, they have a sense when they come in that they belong. They have a sense that they are where they ought to be. And they expect that they are kind of the center of the universe, which they usually are when they come into a family. Everybody who comes in the house gives the child attention and smiles at him or her and talks in a special way and wants to hold the baby and sing songs to it and bounce it on their knees, and all these wonderful things that we love to do to celebrate the children. And it really doesn't matter if they're ours or if they're a family members or if they're a neighbor's. It doesn't matter. There's something almost magical about babies and how people just seem to brighten up around them. I used to travel quite a lot for a living, and I know, I know what it's like to be in that airport Friday night when the flights start to get delayed and everybody's looking at their watch and they know that they're going to be several hours late and they're going to miss the kids' football games and all the other things that they wanted to do with their family, and people can start to get miserable. But boy, if somebody brings a little baby into that departure lounge and the baby starts singing or playing with a rattle or dancing on her mommy's lap and daddy's lap and looking around at everybody and smiling, the whole attitude, the whole demeanor of that departure lounge changes and goes from one of being grumpy to one of being happy. And yes, we're delayed, but we're still happy. So they have that impact. The children have that impact on them. And they seem to feel like they just belong. Like, everybody in that departure lounge is there to smile at me. That's what they're supposed to be doing. And if somebody's too grumpy to smile at me, by God, that little one will just keep flashing smiles over that way until eventually they melt the ice, until eventually they break it down. You know, when the little ones are old enough to start getting solid food, they'll come right up to the table. You put them in the high chair, you bring them right up to the table, and it doesn't matter what you're eating, they're going to have some. You know, it's part of them. It's part of what they expect. They're included. They expect to be included in everything that's going on. They want to know what's going on. They want to participate in what's going on. They don't act as if they don't belong. They don't act as if they shouldn't be there. They act as if it's quite natural to just be included in each and every activity and with each and every person. And they don't necessarily hold back. You know, I know they go through a period where they're shy and they put their heads down and think. They're starting to grow. They're starting to get a sense of who they are. They're starting to change a little bit. But typically they'll love and be friends with anybody who comes over and tries to be friendly with them. And unfortunately in our world there are people we need to protect them from, and we have to start teaching, don't be so trusting, don't be so open. There are people who would wish you harm. So what happens is as we grow, we start to develop this sense of identity. We start to develop this sense of a unique identity of us being, and we are different than other people, and we are separated from other people. And we need to protect ourselves and isolate ourselves and insulate ourselves from other people. So by the time the little ones, as I say, the preschoolers, by the time they're getting into preschool, they're still in that mode of just celebrating each other. Still in the mode of enjoying each other's company as friends. But as they continue to grow and they continue to get experience in this world, they continue to develop a sense of self that is separate from everyone else. And when you see kids in the schoolyard bullying one another and picking on one another because they're different, what I think they're really doing is they're trying to figure out who they are by figuring out who they're not. They really haven't got this good sense of identity and this grounding in being okay with who they are. And they mask that by picking on others who are different than they are. So what happens is we develop this thing called the ego. The ego is a collection of ideas about who we are and the way the world ought to work and the way things should be. And it becomes sort of a shell. Think of a baby chicken growing inside a shell. The ego is a sort of a shell that separates us from everybody else. It keeps in mind how we are all different from one another, and why we are not like those people over there, whoever those people happen to be, and why we must protect ourselves and keep away from, and all of these other things. But there comes a time where that shell will trap the chicken. If the little chick does not peck its way out of the shell, it will die. It will become constrained by the very thing that had been protecting it. And this is what happens to us as we grow, as spiritual beings, as we grow, is it's a necessary part of our development that we develop an ego. We develop some type of a sense of I, some type of a sense of the fact that I am, and a sense of our uniqueness. But it gets constraining when it gets to the point where it totally separates us and totally isolates us and insulates us from one another. It limits our growth. And then there comes a time when we need to start to chip away at that. Just like the baby chick would chip away at the shell and break its way out. And you know, the interesting thing, the thing about watching chickens hatch, is each little chicken decides when it's time for it to peck its way out. It's something that has to come from the inside without. It's not something that is done from the outside within. And there's that within each and every one of us that starts to tell us when this idea of separation and this idea of ego and difference and self and anger and fear and all of these things that go with it, there's a time in each and every one of our lives that we know that we have to start breaking out of that shell. We have to start pecking our way out. And unlimited friendliness, loving kindness, accepting all people and especially ourselves as we are, is a wonderful place to start. We say, well, how are we going to do that, though? How can we possibly do that? There are dangerous people in this world. There are dangerous situations in this world. There's a lot going on. How are we going to bring ourselves from a point of isolation and protectionism in our own little world into a place where at least we can be open? We can be open where we can see the good in all things, even those people who are doing bad things. We can recognize the good in them. That we can be loving kindness. We can help a stranger. We can carry bags for someone. We can help change a flat tire. There's so many things that we can do. Just little things that we can do that say, I'm here. I'm here as a friend. I'll help out. I'll do what I can. So the first thing we want to consider is we want to get ourselves back to the point of recognizing that everything is consciousness. Everything is consciousness. Let's not get caught up in the reality of the appearances. Let's work our way back to cause rather than getting stuck in the effects. And when we're stuck in our ego, we're stuck in effects. We're stuck in dealing in the effects. We have to fight with the effects. We have to create effects to fight effects. And we never get down to the root cause of things. We never get down to consciousness. But if we can truly understand that we live in a spiritual system, a spiritual universe, and everything is consciousness, everything that we see has been created as a result of the consciousness that created it. The power in the universe that responds to us according to our belief, according to our thought, the law of mind, as Dr. Holmes calls it. The Holy Spirit, or the doer of the word, as traditional Christianity calls it. That in the beginning there is nothing, and then consciousness moves upon the face of the waters and says, let there be. And this unlimited power of the universe, this unlimited power of the universe, moves and does whatever needs to be done to bring into form and into expression that which is the perfect outpicturing of its mental equivalent. It is all consciousness. Everything is consciousness. And that's why Dr. Holmes, in his essay on friendship, he refers to Emerson, and Emerson said, if you want to be a friend, you must have, if you want to have a friend, you must be a friend. We must develop the consciousness. We must develop the consciousness of oneness. We must develop the consciousness of being a friend, of accepting. See, the friendship is only going to come, and the friendliness is only going to come when we accept everyone, when we recognize that each and every person is an expression of the consciousness of God, just the same way that we are. Jesus said, of my own self I can do nothing. When you're looking at me, you're looking at the Father. He was an expression of the divine. And each and every one of us is an expression of the divine. And there's a law of attraction, if you will, that our consciousness is going to bring into our lives or keep out of our lives according to what we think, what we believe. So if we recognize then that everything is consciousness, we can recognize that everyone is consciousness in expression. And consciousness can change. And it does change. And it will change. So now we can start to accept each and every other person as an expression of divine consciousness. Now they may not be acting accordingly. They may not be acting in a manner that we would say, well, gee, that's an expression of divine. They may be doing some horrific things, but that does not change the fact that they are nothing more than consciousness and expression. And those horrible things that they are doing is nothing more than an outpicturing of consciousness. And that consciousness can change. If we can look into each other's eyes and we can see the good that is there, we can call it forth. We can look past the atrocities, not ignore them, but not allow them to cause us to hate. We can recognize that these people are doing what seems reasonable to them, as it may seem to us. But we can recognize that whatever is going on is a reflection of consciousness, and that consciousness can change, and at the center of each and every being is the very consciousness of love, the very consciousness of peace, the very consciousness of God, the very consciousness of a friend. And this is what this is what it means to say, to bless our enemies, to pray for our enemies, to want the best for each and every one, to feel our oneness, our compassion with each and every one. So as we start to develop this deeper sense of connectedness, this deeper sense of unity, we recognize that friendliness is unlimited. This idea of love is unlimited. Remember last week we talked about how abundant the universe is, and we were talking about energy and form and stuff and substance, and that's true. But the universe is also unlimited in terms of that which is invisible. See, the best things in life are invisible, aren't they? Love is invisible. You can't see love. You can see the effects of love, but you can't see love, and yet love is real. And peace is real, and friendship is real, and compassion is real, and all of these things are invisible, and they are real, and they are unlimited. The quality of mercy is not strained. Mercy is unlimited. So as we start to recognize then that everything is consciousness, and consciousness can and does change, and there's no sense in getting caught up in the effects, but we need to go down deeper at the level of causation and start to bring about the changes in consciousness that allow us to experience the unity, to experience the oneness, to celebrate the uniqueness, to be a friend to each and every one whom we meet. We come to realize that first we have to start with our own self. For we cannot see the good in another that we will not see in our own self. We cannot connect to another at the level of the soul if we will not connect to our own self at the level of our own soul. We must be willing to accept ourselves just as we are, and to recognize that everything that we have experienced in life is consciousness, and that consciousness can and will change. We must be willing to allow ourselves to go to a deeper level of existence, to a deeper level of being, until we can embrace and love ourselves just as we are. whether anybody else loves us or not. We can love ourselves just as we are. Ultimately, what we wish to do is we wish to experience God. We wish to experience our oneness with God. But the only place that we can do that is by working in our own self, because God is not just out there somewhere, but at the very center of our being. The doorway to heaven is within us, and we must go within our own self and find that presence and love that presence just as a little child loves its buddy. And as we come to learn to love our own self, as we come to learn to love the very presence of God within us, two things happen. The first is that it becomes easier for us to love each and every other person. To look past all the insanity of appearances and to see into the very depth of their soul and to love the presence of God within them. And because we have become a friend to ourselves, a friend to the love of God within us, we find that we attract to ourselves unlimited friendliness, people who are happy to be with us, people who share common goals, people who just want to do this dance of life together. Ram Dass says, we are all just walking each other home. How wonderful to walk home with your buddy, your unlimited friends. We also come to realize as we start to reach this deeper level of being that in order to do this we have to let go of the ideas that separate us. And they are nothing more than consciousness. So this practice of unlimited friendliness, then, this spiritual practice, requires us to meet directly those ideas in our own consciousness which would separate us from another. To recognize them as what they are, just ideas. To know that ideas can change. And to allow ourselves to change through our spiritual practice. To use the tools that we have of treatment and of meditation and of visualization and of affirmation to dissolve that which separates us. When we do that, we start to find the inner guide. We start to find the friend, the ultimate friend that we've been looking for, the one who can take us by the hand, the one who can lead us with a skip into the eternal quest of experiencing God. That is the inner guide, the inner friend, who is waiting in quiet repose for us to tear down the barriers until we can find it. So this idea of unlimited friendliness, well, it seems so simple, and it seems like a wonderful spiritual practice, is actually quite profound. It actually leads us in a very kind and a very loving way. It leads us out of the world of appearances and into the world of cause, which is the world of being. which is the world of love, which is the world of peace. The love of God has created each and every one of us out of itself. It has created each and every person out of itself. Let us find that goodness first in ourselves, and then in another, and then in another. And as one candle can light 1,000,000 candles and never be diminished, let's let that loving kindness, that unlimited friendliness, well up from within us and touch as many hearts as it possibly can. I'd like to close this morning with reading the Buddhist teaching, the sutra. And this is kind of like a prayer, if you will, or a scripture that those who practice unlimited friendliness remind themselves of each and every day. I'm going to make a copy of this, and I'm going to put it up on the Facebook page so that anyone who wants to can take this and pin it up at your cubicle or tape it to your mirror. This is the work of those who are skilled and peaceful, who seek the good. May they be able and upright, straightforward, of gentle speech, and not proud. May they be content and easily supported, unburdened with their senses calmed. May they be wise, not arrogant, and without desire for the possession of others. May they do nothing mean or that the wise would reprove. May all beings be happy. May they live in safety and joy. All living beings, whether weak or strong, tall, stout, medium or short, seen or unseen, near or distant, born or to be born, may they all be happy. Let no one deceive another or despise any human being in any state. Let none by anger or hatred wish harm to another. As a mother watches over her child, willing to risk her own life to protect her only child, so with a boundless heart should one cherish all living beings, suffusing the whole world with unobstructed, loving kindness. Standing or walking, sitting or lying down, during all one's waking hours, may one remain mindful of this heart and this way of living that is the best in the world. Unattached to speculations, views, and sense desires, with clear vision, such a person will never be reborn in the cycles of suffering. I invite us all then to consider how these words might apply to us in our own daily lives. Is it time for us to let the barriers dissolve that are holding us in like the shell holds in a chicken? Is it time for us to peck our way free, even though it might be scary, even though we might have a lot to let go of? Is it time for us to reach out and embrace ourselves, and then another, and then another, and then another. We each have within us the greatest friend that we will ever know. The loving presence of God waiting to guide us, to guard us, to protect us. Let's take that friend by the hand and start a magnificent journey of making more friends. For no matter what it looks like in this world today, wherever we go, the only thing we shall ever meet is the love of God. You are the love of God. And so it is. And this morning, instead of reading a closing treatment, I thought what we could use is something that Dr. Holmes wrote about friendship. For those of you who have Science of Mind textbook, it's on page 299, where he's talking about how to make friends. And this is what he calls a meditation for friendship. In our meditation for friendship, let us make unity with all people, with all life. God in me is unified with God in all. This one is now drawing into my life all love and fellowship. I am one with all people, with all things, with all life. As I listen in the silence, the voice of all humanity speaks to me and answers the love that I hold out to it. The great love which I now feel for the world is the love of God, and it is felt by all and comes back to me from all. I understand all people, and this understanding is reflected back to me. I give friendship, and therefore I have friends. I help, therefore I am helped. I uplift, therefore I am uplifted. I am now surrounded by all love, all friendship, all companionship, all health, all happiness, all success. I am one with life. I wait in the silence while the Great Spirit bears this message to the whole world. And so it is.